Alright, it's been a couple of weeks now since I've made a video. Made some progress. So I'm going to go over some changes that I made to the code, and I have gotten the fireball posture, the Hadoken fireball posture programmed in. I want to go over how that was programmed, and it's a little complex, and the adjustments that I made to the code because of that. And I might go ahead and use this as an opportunity to show the game on a real television. So there might be some little location changes here. Alright, so when I program, I went over this in one of my first videos. I always keep the manual open. I use the little HTML document manual. Now, so that any of the information here is just quick. I'm loading my basic here. Now, I had a problem with some jittering, the cycle count being exceeded, and I realized, and I noticed it's taking a long time to load. This is because the game is very, very close to being finished. I have sound effects programmed now. I have most of the game. It's basically finished, the process of the game. I just need to do the winning and losing, and program the bonus scene, and then of course whatever finishing touches, last moves or special moves need to be sorted out still. But it's quite functional now. Now, I had a problem that was happening that might pop up when I test it. I actually typed in CCAM just to see what would happen, right? And CCAM is an 8-color variant of the Atari 2600 for countries that had certain types of televisions. I wanted to see because I considered trying to make a PAL and also possibly a CCAM variant of the game, and also I thought maybe working with 8 colors would be fun, just to add that extra limitation. So, and after that I noticed that occasionally when I started up my game, it would forget that it was in NTSC, and it would look as though it was in the CCAM color variant. I mean, it's definitely not PAL, because PAL is only a slight reduction of color than NTSC. PAL is, you know, whatever, like 108 or something, whereas NTSC is over 120 colors. Some people don't know that an Atari 2600 can show 120 some odd colors. The only problem is the way the screen is drawn, every line is filled in, and so where a video game system after that would have loaded tiles and then put the tiles up on the screen, the Atari 2600 actually draws almost like if you were to draw, think about how a printer prints a picture. That's how the Atari draws graphics on the screen. It's kind of like a left to right, top to bottom thing. And so when you know that an Atari can display 128 colors or something in NTSC, it's actually in rows. So if I wanted to show 128 colors, I could have every row on the screen from bottom to top show a different color. Something to that effect. And but it's not that you could have, you know, a sprite with, you know, exclusively 128 colors in all different places, layered, or, you know, like a, you know, like Mario or something like that, looking something like that. That would be incredible. That would be more color than a, you know, like most Neo Geo games have it on a sprite, or most games. You know, if you've seen color comparison videos, which there are a lot of them out there, where a popular game will be shown and it will have how many colors are being displayed on the screen. And what you find out when you watch those is a system with the higher levels of color, like the Super Nintendo or something, are actually displaying maybe maybe they could display 256 colors, right? But you're seeing that they're using about 110 or 120 or 128 or something like that. And then you'll see that a system that is supposedly only able to display 64 colors on a screen, something like the Sega Genesis, will be displaying 98 or 101 or 102. So the colors are never really shown in the level at which they could be on an Atari 2600. It's not really effective when creating a sprite or a background for a video game. So you end up with single color backgrounds, single colored sprites and things, but the colors that are available are actually really diverse for a 2600. There are, you know, many shades of every color, but in SACAM it's an 8-color palette. It's reduced. And the way I do graphics, that makes me very interested, because I believe that there's a chance I could layer the colors the way I do and then maybe force the system to cough up 8 more colors, you know, like trick SACAM into having a 16-color palette or something like that. And the graphics look a lot different, and a lot of my colors are kind of canceled out, my backgrounds are canceled out when I do that, because I'm choosing 1 or 2 colors from the same, I should say 1 or 2 shades from the same color, and where SACAM would reduce that to 1 single color, a background where I'm layering 2 colors to achieve a 3rd color will all just look 1 color. So it has an effect of reducing the complexity of the backgrounds, but the sprite characters themselves show that the colors can still be combined and they can still look good. So, you know, in the future, if I want to hobble myself a little bit more as far as the graphic capabilities of the system using and then the game, I could try to program it in SACAM. But when you see SACAM, it actually runs in black and white, but then it has 8 separate color registers that are parts of chips. It's a different board slightly, only in that aspect. And you know, with PAL, it has more to do with the way the color is displayed, and then when the game is programmed, what colors it is chosen to be programmed. Remember, the 2600, the VCS, when it first came out, had a switch on it for black and white, because people were still moving from, I won't say transitioning because that word's been destroyed, but they were moving from black and white TVs to color. When I was a little kid, I had a black and white TV. You know, until my mother's 3rd marriage, we had a black and white TV. So yeah, I mean, and that was in the 80s. So when this system came out, so many people still had black and white TVs, and the games as they were being programmed might look wrong, and so the programmers would have a variant color that would help to equalize the game if the game didn't look right. And for the most part, most of the games looked okay on a black and white TV, but certain games didn't. And so to get the game to look right on a black and white TV, they would have an extra set of colors programmed. And then if you flip that black and white switch, then it would look better on your black and white TV. Now in programming, of course, you get to do whatever you want with all those switches. So with Titan X, for instance, if I remember correctly, I think I made it so that the black and white switch would turn on and off music or something. I use the switches for whatever I want. So you can do that if you want to, you know, if you want to use that black and white switch as a pause button, if you want to use it to turn off and on music, if you want it to be a different color palette. In Runout, I made it so that the difficulty switches actually changed the color of your car. So in Runout, you could turn on and off the music as you were playing, almost like reaching down and turning off your radio in your car while playing the game. And while playing the game, you could flip the difficulty switches to change the color of your car while driving it down the street. So your car could be yellow or blue or red at any given time. Okay, back to the subject at hand here. I'm in my punching and kicking code here. The first thing I'll talk about is the fireballs. Okay, I've got my left side attack counters, and as I reach this here, we have the projectile counter. Now this was a process. I had to make it so you're pressing down but you're not ducking, Okay, because well, okay, let's just explain the move. In late 80s, early 90s, side view fighting games that are still as popular or more popular today than they ever were, circular, quarter circle, half circle motions were used to generate your special moves. So to throw a Hadoken fireball, you pressed down and then rolled the joystick towards your opponent. It would be what was called a quarter circle. So down, and then you would be down right, and then right if you're on the left side facing, and down, down left, left if you're on the right side facing to the left. And then in the middle of that motion, you're hitting one of the punch buttons, and then based on what punch button you hit is the speed and the damage amount that the fireball will do. I'm calling it a fireball. What I'm not going to get into whatever it's psychic fireball, a spirit fireball, lit flatulation fireball, whatever you want to call it. You're throwing a blue fireball from your soul at the opponent. So to get that to happen here, I have to make sure that when I press down, you have a short period of time to be able to arc the joystick towards the opponent without ducking. Otherwise, you're going to squat before you throw a fireball. And that happens, I think, sometimes in certain games anyway. So I also have to make sure you're not already in the middle of a move. I have to make sure the game knows what direction you're facing. Now, because pressing right and left in effect cancels out ducking, I have to then access the joystick itself. So in this brief instance of code, I am accessing whether you're actually pressing joystick right or left, not whether the variable that joystick right or left is using is accessing. Okay, so now we're going to look at this top code here. Here's my mouse. Left side projectile counter. If variable 19 equals 0, that means no move is currently being done. Then variable 45. Variable 45 is used in the menu to help to decide what character you're going to choose for the modes. After that, it's not used in the game. So I'm repurposing variable 45 to be a character counter. Now what this is doing is it's isolating the projectiles to only characters that are using the Ryu fighting scheme of moves. Because I don't think I want Guile to be using the quarter circle move. He doesn't use a quarter circle move for anything. Guile uses charge attacks. You press back a couple seconds, then press forward and punch, and he'll throw his comb or whatever, his sonic boom comb attack or whatever he's doing. So I can't just have this quarter circle move affect every character in the game. And this same thing will be used, only reversed, to do the whirlwind kick, tornado kick, whatever you want to call it. So 45 equals 1. I'm going to go ahead and just point at it right here. Is going to be Ryu, Ken, Oni, whatever his name is. I actually should be using my real character names here, but so Dragon, Master, or Oni, or either of the girl characters. Okay, and H equals 0. That's your horizontal plane. 0 means that you've started. You're on the left side of the screen and you're facing the right. Joy 0 right. That's your actual, hey, you've hit right. And M equals 0, the button has not been pressed. That's what M equals 0 means. And then variable 3 is more than 0. What that means is you've pressed down. Okay, but variable 13 equals 0. That means you haven't pressed down long enough to actually squat. So we're right there in like a 2 or 3 machine loop catch, where if you press down just the right amount, you're going to squat down, but if you press down and then curve forward, you're not going to squat, you're going to get ready for that fireball attack. Now, I don't have the fireball shooting across the screen just yet, because I'm still kind of deciding how I'm going to do that. I'm either going to make it a second instance of the sprite, or I'm going to make it a missile. If I make it a missile, that's going to complicate the graphics of punches and kicks, if a fireball is still going across the screen. If I make it a sprite, then it's going to cause the characters to shimmer briefly while the fireball is on the screen. If I make them shimmer, then the fireball is going to look as good as I want it to look. If I make it a missile, then the fireball is going to look like crap. And during that brief time when the fireball is moving, punches and kicks for that particular character will look like crap. So I get to decide shimmer and the fireball looks pretty good, or no shimmer, the fireball looks like crap and the punching and kicking looks like crap. So I'm still teetering on which one of those I'm going to choose. And what I'll probably do is go ahead and try to shimmer the character. Now to shimmer the character, then I have to have a variable that will hold on to your present x coordinate on the x-axis. And then I have to tell player one in one certain group of the phases of graphics, because there are 4 different phases of graphics, to be a fireball instead of the character. Okay, and then what will be constantly happening once a fireball is thrown is it will be saying player one is moving across the screen but he looks like a fireball, but in the next draw screen, player one is actually back where he was originally and he looks like his character or her character. And you know, that's going to be more difficult to code. It's going to look better, and you know, it may not really be entirely feasible. It depends on how much it bogs down the system. So I don't know, I might need to, I want to kind of zoom in a little bit here, I think, to help to understand this code slightly better, to try to explain this, because this is how to do a Hadoken, a way to do Hadoken Fireball, or whatever you want to do with quarter circle motion in your game. So we've got variable 19 equals 0. I've already explained all this. No moves being done. 45 equals 1. A character that's using quarter circle fighting moves, Dragon, Master, or Oni, or either of the girl characters. H equals 0. He's facing the right. He's on the left side of the screen facing the right. Joystick is right. You have pressed right. And M equals 0. You haven't pressed the button yet. And variable 3 is greater than 0. You've pressed down, but variable 13 is 0. Not enough to squat. Because when you squat, variable 13 equals 1. That way you're not moving right and left. It traps the character down, and it gives me a way to tell the sprite groups which sprite to choose. Okay, then variable 0 equals 0, meaning you don't move at all, and the variable 0 is reset. And variable 16 equals 2. Now I'm using variable 16. It's actually used as a counter earlier, but it is only used as 0 or 1. So anything beyond 1 can be used again. I'm actually repurposing 2 different variables in this process. Now up at the top, I'm telling the loop here, if variable 16 equals 3 and variable 45 equals 1, then variable 19 equals 8. Variable 19.8 is the sprite for throwing the fireball, the posture that the character takes. 45 equals 1, again, is any of the Ryu-based characters or the girls. It's basically saying, you're not Guile. Okay? Variable 16 equals 3 is part of that repurposing of variable 16 beyond 0 or 1 to grab onto the character and make him hold still until I'm done with him. So once that right there is active, from the very beginning as it's looking through stuff, if it sees those conditions met, your character isn't doing anything until that whole process is done. And that makes it so that I can have a nice pause of a moment in time where he's throwing that fireball, and you can't just like yank and rip and hit buttons and stuff to get him to mess up and do other things. He's frozen in that motion just for that second there. And of course there's a timer. So going back down here to my projectile, we've started it based on which direction he's facing. Now we can see that variable 16 equals 2, right? Now once this process is started, what this is saying is you've pressed down and you've pressed down to the right. Okay? But you're not actually moving to the right and you're not squatting. That's that beginning where you press down and diagonal to the right. And that's those first two things. Now once that's done, then your variable 16 equals 2 is saying, are you getting ready to throw a fireball? Now we're going to say, okay, you're not squatting, you've pressed the button and you're pressing only to the right. That's the next one. So variable 16 equals 2, meaning you started by pressing down and then diagonal. H equals 0, you're facing to the right. And M is greater than 0, you've pressed the button. And variable 0 is greater than 1, you've also pressed to the right. Then M equals 0, hey, your button doesn't matter now. Variable 16 equals 3, this is the next phase in the Hadoken fireball. And variable 19 equals 8. Now we're showing the graphics for you throwing a fireball. Okay, now that's important because we don't want you to be doing the fireball motion before the button is actually pressed. So that's really why that second one is necessary. And it locks you into that mode because variable 16 is now 3. That's saying, okay, we're throwing the fireball. Now down here at the bottom, variable 19 equals 8. And E is less than 17. E is our counter. E is saying as you're cycling through it every single time, E's going up 1 at a time. That's a timer. It's saying I'm throwing this, but how long do I stand here for this motion? We have then E equals E plus 1, variable 0, all of the things equal 0. That's saying that no matter what you're pressing or yanking or twisting, nothing's going to happen now until this counter is done. Now in the next line, variable 19 equals 8, that's your, again, graphics for your fireball. E is greater than 16. That's my timer saying you have exceeded how long I want you to stand there. Now, E resets, the timer has now reset. Variable 16 has reset, and variable 19 has reset. So we're saying, okay, you're done, you have thrown the fireball, or you've done the motion for the fireball. Now we're going to see it in action real quick. Hopefully it won't do the Secam colors, but if it does, you'll get to see the little thing I've come up with here. No, it didn't. Okay. Maybe I'll trick it into doing that later and you can see it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and back up. Turn. Should be doing this again. Alright, so now we're going to hit the button for a 2-player. And I can go through to pick a character. I can switch to the other character that I might want. Okay. Now why not? We're going to pick Master here. There we go. Okay. Now I'm just going to jump guys around a little bit. Now, I'm going to turn up the sound. Alright, now listen. There's a swooshing noise, and there's a hitting noise, okay? Okay. There's our fireball. See it? Well, I mean the Hadoken stance. Okay. Alright, we'll go ahead and restart the game real quick. See? Now I'm going to just hit buttons and stuff. You can see that for that brief moment, I'm hitting buttons here. I'm going to go ahead and later I'll program a noise. I might try to, in Titan Axe I did kind of a yelling noise for when the bad guy used his like death magic on you. I might try to do a noise kind of like that is somewhat like a yell. I'm obviously not going to try to program phonetic expressions. This guy's not going to go Hadoken in some kind of grainy way. He might go, ah! He might yell or something like that, a Kyewt, or, you know, Kyewt, something like that. I don't know, but he's going to yell or some kind of sound effect. Now, I talked about this before, but the reason my characters don't the reason whenever they do a fighting move, it's not interrupting the sounds. You're hearing the sound effects happen while the music's playing, is because I isolate each channel. I'm not having a song that uses channel 1 and channel 2. If I did that, then whenever a sound effect happens, you'd have a brief interruption in whatever music is going on that channel. So suppose I had a drum beat and a bass line on channel 1, and then some kind of chirpy, bright stuff going on channel 2, and then I had a sound effect that was using up channel 2. The bright, chirpy stuff would then go mute whenever I use a move. So I use channel 1 I use the first channel for background music, and then I use the second channel for special effect or sound effects. So. Okay, you can hear the attack hitting. Okay, so now I had some jittering in the game, and it was getting, go ahead and move this back over, it was getting a little ridiculous, the jittering was. So I examined my code. I went through it all. Why am I getting this jittering? Because in my mind I'm thinking I'm not pushing the system in that I'm having one sprite per draw, or you know, one sprite per character per draw screen, one missile per character per draw screen, one background per character per draw screen. So I shouldn't have been exceeding the cycle count, and I didn't know why I was getting jittering. Then I realized why, because I examined my code. Way down here where my code is going out to grab graphics for the characters, I realized that I was doing something kind of wrong. Okay, so here's back to A block. When it goes to A block, it searches through for the graphics that it's going to choose for your character. What was happening is once it went to A block, it was then going to another bank to get the second graphics. And then it was going back to draw them, then going to another bank again. Every time it was going out for graphics, it would be changing banks. And that extra bank change is what was causing the cycle count to be exceeded. So what I did to fix the problem is, and what I'll just put it, I guess, in a way that's a little easier to understand, okay? When it draws the screen, it grabs one sprite per draw screen for the player 0 and for the player 1. But I had all of player 0's graphics in one bank and all of player 1's graphics in the other bank. So when it went to draw the first sprite layer for player 0, it would change banks to draw the first sprite layer for player 1. And so what I ended up doing is putting the first sprite layer for player 0 and 1 in one bank, and then the second sprite layer for player 0 and 1 in the next bank. And that took one whole bank jumping loop out of the equation. And that eliminated 98% of any and all jitters. The other jittering that's happening are because of loose math. I'm saying I'm leaving something hanging and I need to go in and trim it up and weed it out. And those are things that will be done in the final touch-ups of the game so that there's little or no jittering going on. Obviously, ideally, I want no jittering at all. I don't want the cycle count to be exceeded. So yeah, and that's just me trying to be linear, but then kind of stumbling. I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to put all my player 0 sprites in one bank, all my player 1 sprites in the other bank. But when I draw the screen, I have to go out and grab the first sprite layer for both. So once it grabbed the first sprite layer for player 0, then it's like, oh, I have to switch banks to get the first sprite layer for player 1. So by putting the first sprite layer for player 0 and for player 1 in one bank, then on the first loop it goes to that bank and it doesn't have to switch banks again after that to get the next graphics. And then when it gets the second layer, it goes down to another bank and it doesn't have to switch banks. Every time it has to switch banks within a loop, it's going to raise the cycle count too high. So you want everything, when you're going out to get stuff like that, to grab the graphics within your loop. You don't want it changing banks over and over again. That just stresses the system. So we have done sound effects. Now the way I did sound effects, let's see if I can dig those up real quick. Just scroll down here to where my moves are, and try to grab this thing. It's not wanting to. Okay, here we go. Excuse me. Here in my collision detection little thing, the move count. This is saying if you're not colliding and you're pressing directions within boundaries, and I might remove these boundaries because I have more effective trappings of each side of the screen. I might not need those. And of course, every time you free up redundant code, you're going to reduce the cycle count and you're going to open up more ROM space. So as I'm going down here, the collisions are all happening for movement. And then we have the stunned effects, which change the hit bar and knock the character around and reset them a little bit here. And then down here we have the effects. And so the sound effects have a punch hit, kick hit. All the kicking and punching have different hitting sounds. And you can see here, if collision, missile 1, player 0, and variable 20 equals 1 or variable 19 equals 1. These are if player 0 or player 1 are punching. 4 is kick, 5 is jump kick or possibly squat kick. Then we have the actual sound, saying if they're not colliding with each other, they make a whooshing sound. So we have a whooshing sound for each of the moves, and we have a hitting sound for each of the moves. So it's like a kung fu movie. Whenever they punch and it goes whoosh, and it makes a kind of a windy whooshy sound, and then when they hit, it goes whoosh, like it's got this little smacking, whatever, like exploding, breaking, and that's what we've programmed here. So every move's going to have its own little sound, and the whooshing. I was going to put a whooshing sound for the back flips, but I went ahead and, for the flipping motion, I went ahead and did that, and it just didn't sound right. It kind of made it a little too whooshy and swooshy sounding all the time. So I went ahead and got rid of the flipping sound effect. And of course down here, if no collision, missile or player, and no collision, missile or player, and no moves are happening, variable 20 is 0 and 19 is 0, then turn off the sound. And of course the reason you do that is so there's a cutoff for your sound. When you punch and you're not hitting them, it makes the whooshing noise, but if you don't have that little cutoff, then once you generate a sound effect, it's going to say, tell me when to turn that off, and then that's never happening. So if I don't have that on there, then I punch, it's just going to go whoosh until another sound effect is introduced, whenever that happens. And then that sound effect, suppose it's a hitting sound, it will go just the entire time until another sound, until anything goes up and says, hey, turn that audio channel sound volume down. And I'm telling it to turn the channel frequency and volume to 0, just because in my head I'm thinking I don't want a sound effect that's always going on unnecessarily, and you can't hear it just because the volume's off. So instead I'm saying no, there's no channel or frequency or volume. The whole sound channel is just blanked out and there's nothing going on. I feel like that's the right kind of more efficient way to handle it. You don't have to, though. I mean, you can just have the volume go to 0, and then of course you're not going to hear whatever's going through the channel. So there's the sound effects, and they're part of the collision detection going on in the game. Okay. So now I'll probably go ahead and try to show some of the graphics on a TV. Okay, this is on a TV and next to my programming room. This is an old CRT style through a 7800, and I've got some glare on the screen here. I really can't do anything about that right now. I'm going to restart it just to get everything looking right. I don't know how good this is going to look on here. It's going to have lines running yet. It seems like it's a little too bright, so I'll kind of zoom in here and see if I can't. Because see, as I'm seeing it, it doesn't really look that bright. On the view screen it does. Now there was a lot of jittering on the character selection screen, and that's been fixed. But there's still, I've realized, some jittering in the game from what I just did. So, as we're seeing here, there's the fireball move, and I can already see it. Now this is, I'm thinking it might be from the propeller, because this didn't happen before. Let me see here. Yeah. So I'm going to reset. And as you can see, there is no jittering here. Get an idea of kind of what this is looking like here. Got lines running through it from the sync rate. And what I'd really like to do is have the throwing done here too, so that should be soon. Is I'll have the throwing. Now this screen is a little too dark. I might tweak the colors. It seems darker than it did before. We had a power outage not too awful long ago, and I think it reset the color and brightness settings and stuff on all my TVs when they go around. When the power goes out, I have to go and like reset like 5 or 6 different clocks. I have to reset some of these older TVs sometimes forget their settings. But yeah, it shouldn't be jittering just with normal motion though, and it is a little bit. You can see right there and there. This is the slightest. There, that was a big one. I really like this background. I like the propeller. But the effect that can happen with these layered games is kind of sometimes it shimmers. So you want to darken the colors. Often the game will be slightly darker than your typical Atari game. I'm using an Uno cart to test these. So if you check out here, this is my Uno cart menu, and so this is Kyewt Kong, and you can see that it's kind of bright. It's a relatively bright game, and the colors probably need tweaked, you know, a little bit. And this was about as bright as I could get the game. And as I can see, I think this TV's settings are just kind of wrong right now. Now I'm using a custom-made pad that, oh, there we go. But I also had to switch this. I have two custom-made pads, but one of them decided to poop out on me. I think it's a capacitor. There doesn't seem to be anything wrong with the controller itself. So I'm going to take it apart and replace the whatever little capacitors on it. Hopefully that will get it working again, because I was using just thumb pads. But of course, I test the game with joysticks too. So, you know, if I look at a game like a normal game, I'll go and do my Jetpack redraw. Here's the level of brightness and color. That you might see on your TV. It's kind of bright, it's not too bad. So yeah, you can see the I don't know, this might be, it might have remembered my settings. This is a nice old TV. And yeah, it looks like it remembered my settings, I think. But everything does seem a little bit bright on here. So let me turn the light, above head light on here. And, you know, I'll test my games on lots of different systems. Down here I have a 7800. But I also will test on this right here, the Coleco Gemini, which has a nice story behind it. Coleco wanted to tap into the 2600 popularity, and of course Sears, I guess they were licensed to do what they did, because that was even back like in the, you know, late 70s, early 80s. But what Coleco did, they weren't really licensed. They were a competitor, but because all the parts to build the system were aftermarket, it was kind of up in the air whether they were allowed to do that or not. So they went ahead and did it anyway. And so the Gemini is a pretty good system. And they had a controller with a built-in paddle and a side button and a relatively sensitive joystick. It wasn't, you know, with the Atari joysticks, you kind of are up in the air with whether they're really, really stiff or really loose. This is a great one. You can hear it. This is an after, you know, you can just see how easy that is for me. That's not And that's perfect. And this was made later. This was made for, you can tell just by looking here at the bottom, if you know what the bottom of these usually look like. This was made later for like an emulator system, but it's perfect. And it even says P2 right here. This was made for a flashback. But because it's, you know, perfectly fine, and it's really, really sensitive. But I have a whole mess of 2600 controllers, all varying in stiffness and sensitivity. And, you know, I don't like really super, super hard to push controllers. I don't want to play on something where I'm hulking out and yanking the controller just to try to get something to happen. But, you know, that's just how it is. Just like with Sega Genesis, they had certain controllers that were, even with the same serial numbers, Sega Genesis had controllers where the thumb pad was really, really stiff, but then they had ones where the thumb pad was floating, much like what happened with the 6-button controller later, and those are preferable. Rarer, but they're really great, and they're 3-button. And then I have this guy down here, which is a Vader, modded Vader 4-switcher. And it's starting to want to kind of switch blue colors off and on, so I need to go in there and turn that little color dial until it decides to stop doing that. So right now it was effective for testing, but it's starting to be a little wonky for me to try to test games on it. And I have a heavy 6er that I'm fixing. I have a Sunnyvale 4-switcher that I test on. We got a Rainbow Junior I can use to test on. So plenty of different systems for testing out on real TVs. I also have several different CRT televisions of different years. This is the oldest one that we have. As you can see, it's one of those old fake wood panel kind of console style, and it's been repaired. And it's still good. It's really clean, clear picture. So the Ghostbusters game, you can see kind of what I'm dealing with here. This guy doesn't want to stop. Sometimes you definitely want to change the code there so he'll stop. I made it so you can speed up and slow down online. And there'll be ghosts coming down towards you. And then the first scene. Now, I'm considering redoing all these backgrounds using the PF Heights method that I used for backgrounds in the Yeet Fighter game, just because it would save room. And the more room for graphics, the more variety I can have. But this is using mirrored, much higher resolution background graphics, and using the single color layered to get 3 colors. And Slimer actually has 3 different colors. Each of the characters here, Winston and Peter, have 3 different colors. There's no moving programmed yet, but I have all the moves ready to plug in there and stuff. Now, one thing I did when I started doing the redoing the Fighting Street Fight World game again was I decided I'm not going to program another game until this one game is finished. So I've been exclusively paying attention, because I have this, you know, problem of getting really, really excited and then just programming and then going, oh, what if I could do this? Then programming that. Oh, what if I could do this? And programming that. And oh, now I want to do this and programming that. And I've got like 20 different little demos like this, but none of them are finished. And then that's not so much the problem as, and this is inherent with coding, anyone who's coding, no matter what, machine code, basic code, C++, Python, whatever you're coding in, once you walk away from it and a good amount of time goes by, it's very, very difficult to scoot back in there and actually kind of start over where you left off. So using remarks helps, making journals that go along with it helps, but also just feeling that pull to get in there, and it's a lot of stress. It's very, very stressful because you're digging through code, and then and you're always learning. So, and I learned this too, is when I went through the old Titan Axe code, I was just like, oh man, I could have done it this way, or I could have done it this way, or I would never do that now, or why didn't I do this then? And that happens too. You'll go through code if you've waited a year and you do what I did and started making, endless different demos. Then you'll look at it and go, oh man, I could just do this in a totally different way now. And of course, that's going to take much longer. So the lesson there, I guess, would be stick with it. If you start a game, just pay attention to that game exclusively and don't stop programming it until it's finished. And that's very difficult for me to do. That's something where I don't want to do that. I want to play, I want to have an idea and then just start chipping away at it. Now, we've had this kind of upsurge in Star Trek with me and my youngest son, and so now I'm thinking about making a Star Trek game, and so that's definitely going to happen in the future. I'm gonna try to make a really cool, like the best Star Trek game ever on the 2600. Someone said in a comment that, of course, I get a couple negative comments and a couple of positive comments, but he said this is niche as F, and that you're the only person in the world interested in this. And just for the record, when you speak on behalf of 8 billion people, you automatically sound like a moron. And people love to do that. They love to say nobody likes this, everybody likes this. And if you're in the United States of America and you're saying that, and you're speaking on behalf of 8 billion people, and you might know 10, 15, 20 people, 100 people in your real life. You might know a handful of people. You might be fake friends with thousands and thousands of people online. But when you say, nobody likes this, you're speaking on behalf of 8 billion people. And to me, you automatically sound like a moron. And of course, somebody came in right afterwards and said, I'm interested in this, which feels great when you do that. Thank you to whoever came in and said that. I thumbs upped him and I said, I'm doing my best on this. And no, I wasn't mean to the guy that said this was niche as F and that I'm the only person in the world interested in it. But to claim that I am the only person in the world that's interested in a Street Fighter 2 game for the 2600, I think it would be a big deal. When I first worked on the game in forum, it was a pretty big deal. Because I was trying to show more than anything that you have to not be afraid to try radical departures to get things like that done. And no matter what, this game is a radical departure from what's ever been done on the 2600 before. I mean, I want this to be... And of course, and I explained to him, hey, on average 100 people watched the videos about this. And that particular video had over 350 views, which for me, a person that doesn't pay for views and, is dealing with something like this, that's a big deal for me. It really is. So I thank everyone who's watching. The game is very, very near completion. We've got swooshy sound effects, hit sound effects, fireball moves programmed in. It's the holidays, and I've had other things happening in my life, and so trying not to get sidetracked, but also trying to get back into coding. I've also been trying to chat with some people online because I took a break from that for a couple of years, and so I was back on Wire Club, which is, it's totally full of people, and a lot of those people are just, I don't know, it makes me kind of afraid for the future of humanity, but also there are a couple of people on there that are okay and nice. Sometimes it's fun to talk to these, or to chat, I should say, chat with them. But you go into these rooms and you get such a diverse crowd of people, and some of them are like these alpha male competitive people who get in there and they're just telling you how they would find you and kill you right now and stuff like that. Then you get people who are you know, really angry, mean women who just attack men. They're there, and you get people who come in and they're there to talk to one person in a chat room full of 30 people, and they treat you like crap if you try to talk to them or respond to them. It's just fun, but then sometimes it's not, and it can sidetrack you. So yeah, and I think I gotten, you know, somewhat sidetracked by the holiday, by chatting online, and then also trying, you know, I'm raising kids and having a lot of fun with that. So coming up next on my Atari adventure might just be the best Star Trek game ever made on the 2600.